very much. Thank you, very kind. Very, very kind. So Senator Cruz just gave me some advice. The first, I never like to follow him, but the second bit of advice, he says, don't use my microphone. You know, you have been kind enough to have me come here for many years. And last year when I was here, I made a promise to you. I wanted to come back for many reasons. But I wanted to come back and talk about the promise that I made, because it's a promise that I kept. We have ended one-party rule of the Democrats in Washington, and we have fired Nancy Pelosi. I know what people will say. They get worried. At the end of the day, we'll probably end up with 222 members in the House. That's pretty much just a flip from what it is today on the party. Some people say it should have been more. Yeah, I wanted more. But I looked at the climate of where we were in. It wasn't what everybody thought. But by having the House, we finally have a check and balance. And the one thing I learned, you could applaud that. That was a big victory. I'm proud of the fact when they gave me the honor to be leader, 4 years ago, we had less than 200 members. I've been leader for 2 cycles, and all we've done is win. And I found out as being speaker, they don't hand gavels out by size, small, medium, and large. They just give you one gavel with the power, and the power of subpoena as well. And we're going to use it. You know, before I begin, winning the majority isn't just a few people. There's a lot of people in this room I got to thank. But I first want to start with Senator Norm Coleman and Matt Brooks. We could not have done it without this dynamic organization. You know, they were instrumental in taking the House back. But you have some other people here too. On your board is a dear friend of mine I've known since high school, Jeff Miller. You could applaud Jeff. Even if you know him, you could still applaud him. He's on your board, but I've known him since we got out of high school. He's always focused on the relationship between Israel and America and the Republican Party. He believes in freedom, and he fights for it each and every day. But there is one family that I think stands on the shoulders of all the others, or we literally stand on theirs. Miriam Adelson. What she has done, not just to enable this Republican majority, but what her heart is to save and rescue others from addiction. We've watched it not just in this community, but around the world. And you know, there's not a day that doesn't go by that 22 months ago that we lost Sheldon. What Sheldon has done, not just for the party, for the nation, for the world. And every year, or every 2 years, I take all the freshmen to Israel. I tell them when they're running, there's going to be an invitation. It's going to come. And I want you and your spouse, and I will lead it, and we'll spend a week. And it will change your life. You already understand the importance that America and Israel have. But on that last night, there's not a dry eye in there when we're talking on our last dinner. There's not a stronger bond that is created. But on one of those nights, Miriam was there. And I left, and I went and had dinner with her. And we probably spent 2 hours just telling stories of Sheldon. And I would tell her, there's no greater love I've ever seen between a man and a woman, between those two. And I wanted them to know what type of mentors and examples that they showed the rest of the world. Never a night apart. And she would tell the stories when they first met and go through. And one of my most exciting things that it's ever happened to me, before she left, she said, Sheldon would want you to have something. And she came down and she brought me a couple ties, a couple pocket squares. And I told her I can't wait to wear that as I bang the gavel down on the House of Representatives. Because there's so many reasons to use it. We watch anti-Semitism grow, not just on our campuses, but we watched it grow in the halls of Congress. You know, I made another promise to you last time. There was this congresswoman, Ilhan Omar. That's a rightful boo. I remember what she said about me. I remember what she said about Israel. Remember what she said about the relationship. I remember it so much, I promised you last year that as speaker, she no longer would be on foreign affairs. And I'm keeping that promise now. I'll make some new promises to you. We're not going to stay in Washington. We're going to take our committees on the road, and we're going to go to the halls of these colleges. We're going to stop the anti-Semitism and the movement that is happening in any place we see it. But I want to talk about Tuesday night. Some of you may be sad about it, but don't be sad when it comes to the House. I want you to talk about what is this new majority? Who got elected and where did we win it? We won it in New York, a lot thanks to Lee Zeldin as well. You know, I was texting with Lee today. He's on military duty. Otherwise, he's normally here. So he wanted me to give you his best wishes. But last Tuesday, it's roughly almost more than 4 million people voted for Republicans in the House over the Democrats. We actually have a percentage pretty equal to what we had, the difference between Republican and Democrats, than we did in 2010. But what they really wanted to end was that one-party rule. But I really want to talk about who's the makeup of this new majority. You heard from some of all already. You know, with Max Miller in Ohio, George Santos in New York, and you had David Kustoff from Tennessee get reelected. He introduced them. Do you realize we have the largest Republican Jewish caucus in more than 24 years? Not bad, huh? But we got a lot more room to grow. I'm always recruiting, so I'm looking at some of you right now. But let me give you another demographics of our new caucus. With the addition of John James in Detroit, Wesley Hunt in Houston, for the first time since Reconstruction, we have the largest number of black Republicans serving in Congress as well. You want another data point to give to your friends? With the election of Zach Nunn in Des Moines, for the first time since the 1940s, the entire Iowa delegation is Republican. And with the election of Lori Chavez DeRemer in Oregon, Ana Paula Luna in Florida, Anthony Diaz-Facedo and George Santos in Long Island, New York, and Juan Ciscomani and Monica de la Cruz along the border, the highest Hispanic Republican population we have ever had as well. I tell you that because the party is growing. But it's not growing in just one area, it's growing across the country. We were competitive in almost every single state. When you talk to Dan Constant, who ran CLF, there are about 25 seats that we lost by less than 5 points. They haven't called them all yet. We're going to gain another seat in California. You can applaud them. But you know what? Do you know which seat got called for number 218? A congressman by the name of Mike Garcia. You can applaud Mike. Do you know Mike's background? First generation American, grew up in Southern California, went to the Naval Academy, flies F-18s off aircraft carriers, defend us in the Middle East. He runs for Congress in a seat that Biden won by 13 points. He wins it in a special. He keeps it. So we have redistricting. So they draw to make it more democratic. Like, no Republican can win it. Well, you know what? How ironic it is that? In the LA County, in a seat that Biden won by 13, Mike Garcia is number 218. That's his new call sign. So let's talk about why were we successful. I want to talk a little bit about that, but I heard Tim Scott talk about it first. I heard the nation talk about it. Under this one-party rule in 2 years, highest inflation in 41 years. But do you understand what that does to a society? The question everybody should be asked, could you give up 1 month salary? Could you give 1 month of your salary just up? 95% of America can't afford to do that, but the Democrats took it from it. You see, 1 month of your salary is 8.3% of your overall year. What's inflation? 8.3%. So they left you with 12 months of bills, but they only left you with 11 months to pay for it, so you struggle. Then this policy that you heard Tim talk about it more, of defunding the police. Not only did it make you scared, it made a border unsafe. He talked about those on the terrorist watch list. Do you know how hard it is to get on a terrorist watch list? You know, we caught 2 on different days from Yemen coming into California. Do you ever wonder, why are they coming? Who are they talking to? Or what do they have planned? I wish the president would wonder, because it just kept growing. You know what else happens? Fentanyl. You know what's going to happen today? 300 Americans are going to be poisoned and die. You know what's going to happen tomorrow? 300 more Americans are going to be poisoned and die. You know where that fentanyl comes from? From China to Mexico to the cartels up here. You know what the equality of 300 Americans is? What's equal to that? An airline crashing. What happened if an airline would crash every day for 3 days in America? We would all wake up and say we have a crisis, would we not? And we'd want to do something about it. Well, next Tuesday, I'm going down to the border again. We're going to get a new update. Because you know why? When I become speaker, we're going to move a hearing down on the border, and I'm going to make a bipartisan on both sides. Another promise I'll make you, I will not allow them to ignore it. As speaker, I'll have the meeting there. They make them all show and see what's happening. You know what's happening? Fentanyl kills the #1 killer of Americans between the ages of 18 and 45. That's our most productive years in an economy. Those are the years of the individuals who serve in the military to defend us. It makes me wonder, why would somebody target that generation in America? Well, we should stop it, and stop it now. We've watched what they do to our parents who want to go to school board meetings. They go after them. They call them terrorists. We watched what they do with no check and balance. So we know why we won. Now let me tell you what we'll do with the majority. Well, the first thing we should do is keep our word. We told the entire country that we had a commitment to America. Our first commitment was to make an economy that is strong. How do you start that? Well, Reagan used to tell us, we don't have inflation when the people live well. We have inflation when government lives well. So we need to cut the wasteful spending in Washington right off the bat. We watched, he went after the energy industry. And look, I'm one who believes in all the above. Every study you see, we need to double everything we have, from wind to solar to oil to natural gas to hydro to nuclear, if we want to grow. But we ought to think differently. It's not just about the economy. Yes, we want people to be able to fill up their tanks and have money left over for groceries. But God has blessed our nation. Being energy independent makes this economy even stronger, does it not? More people at work. But we should take what God has blessed us, and let's not just sell it to our allies. Let's sell it to our adversaries so they're dependent on us instead of us dependent on them. You know, it's interesting. I would think about what was going on in the election, and it seemed a lot like 1979 in that last election, didn't it? I mean, when was the last time we had somebody elected to the White House, not by telling us what they would do, but telling us what they would not be. Jimmy Carter said he wouldn't be Nixon, and Biden just promised not to tweet. When is the last time we had Americans who are held hostage in the Middle East? In Iran under Jimmy Carter, in Afghanistan today under Joe Biden. When was the last time we had the strongest military in the world, second to none, but our commander-in-chief looks weak? Carter couldn't land the helicopters when he tried to rescue the hostages, and Biden wouldn't listen to his military when he created 13 new Gold Star families in Afghanistan, right? When was the last time we had somebody in the White House that told Americans to expect less? Carter gave us the malaise speech, right? Told us to put a sweater on, turn the heater down, that the best days were behind us. Price of gas goes up to $5 because Biden goes after the economy of production of energy. And when it goes to $5, what does he say? That's a good thing. Expect less. Go buy an EV. But remember that other guy who came from California, went to the podium, said no pastels, fly the bold colors, and go to the shiny city on the hill? He knew the potential of America. He knew what we could be. When was the last time we had an energy crisis like this? Where a president would pick one form of energy over another. You know, Jimmy Carter was the first president to put solar panels on the White House. Biden, on his very first day, ends a pipeline. And who do they both look to solve the problem? Not Americans, but Saudi Arabia. You know, my mom, she's 81 years old. She can't drive a full tank of gas in a week. Every day she gets up, she puts her dog Mia in the car, and she goes to Sonic to get the ice. She goes and has lunch with her friend. She comes by and sees her granddaughter. She goes back in. But every single Wednesday, she goes to Costco to get gas. You can applaud Costco. It's great. But you know what she does on Wednesdays? She takes a picture of the line of the cars that are lined up. Then she takes a picture of the price that she paid. Then you know what she does? She texts me, her son. You know what she says? What have you done about it this week? Last week I texted her back, just wait till January 3rd, Mom. I'm almost there, all right? But we all remember what happened in 80. A man got elected by the name of Ronald Reagan based upon policies. Great communicator, but it was the policies. That's what we're going to do. We're going to make our economy strong. So not just America is strong, but the rest of the world is safe and secure when we are energy independent. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to make a nation that is safe. We're going to secure our borders. We're going to stop defunding the police and fund the police. But a nation cannot be safe if Biden's allowed to continue to negotiate with Iran. This is not about putting them money. This is not about them being back on. And we've got to be very clear, just as your last senator told you. That all changes on January 3rd. This is a country. He negotiates with Iran the moment he comes to power. And what does Iran do? Targets our former Secretary of State, National Security Advisor, and Iranian dissidents in our own soil. We remember the last time he was in office, when he and Obama missed the Green Revolution. We're not going to miss this revolution in Iran. I'm going to stand with anyone for freedom inside Iran that wants a different government now and in the future. Then we're going to build an economy and a future that's on freedom. We're going to pass a Parents' Bill of Rights so you can have a say in your kids' education. And then we're going to give you a government that is held accountable. Shouldn't you know where the origins of COVID actually began? Shouldn't we know what happened in the last 60 days in Afghanistan so it never happens ever again? Shouldn't we know why the DOJ went after the parents? And I think there's a few other things we ought to know too. And we'll get around to that. But I want to end with this. There's lots of times when I come here, I tell you about the different paintings in my office. And I've told you the story about Washington crossing the Delaware. Do you remember that story? Remember that painting? You remember who painted it? He wasn't an American. He was a German immigrant who lived in America. He gets it historically wrong, and he paints it because he wants Germany to have a revolution based upon the values of America. You see Washington in a ceremonial uniform with his hand on his chest. You look at Washington, he's so stoic. You would follow him anywhere because you think that man has never lost a battle, but history teaches us at that moment in time he'd only been a loser. But he risked everything for the idea of freedom. But in that painting, what Emmanuel paints is a different America that we would think. The first person is Scottish, the person across from is African American. In the middle of the boat is a woman, in the very back is a Native American. And people wonder, was that true history? Well, to Emmanuel, who lived in America, that's who he believed history would be. Well, what I would tell you, when Emmanuel paints those 13 people but shows you only 12 faces, that second to last person that only has a hand across the face, I always believe that's Emmanuel saying, here's a hand, would you join us? Well, what I want to tell you is that journey is very important right now. Because that boat, if that boat is the U.S. Congress, the majority looks different. As I told you, we have more Hispanic Republicans, more black Republicans, more Jewish Republicans, more women. We are filling the boat to make it look all like America. Why? Because our policies are right. The water's just as choppy, and we're 2 years out from a presidency. So my quest to you is, join us in that boat. Don't leave us just because we won now. The fight has just begun. Thank you, and God bless.